Welcome, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Denise Jorgens, and I'm the Director of International House here at the University of Chicago. Today's program is sponsored by the International House of Chicago Global Voices Performing Arts and Lecture Series and UChicago Global. This program also represents the inaugural program of the International House Association Global Forum Series. Beginning this autumn, the historic International House Association has been relaunched as a global organization. The International House Association represents a collection of historic international houses and centers around the world. Our mission is to carry forward the visionary legacy of our founders, John D. Rockefeller Jr., and Harry and Florence Edmonds, as well as others, by fostering a global community committed to peace building, cultural exchange, and intellectual collaboration. Our vision is for a world united by mutual understanding and respect, where all cultures are celebrated and conflicts are resolved through peaceful dialogue. As part of our year-long launch activities, the International House Association is pleased to announce this Global Forum Series, which, as I said, we kick off today. This will be a series of 6 programs that will be held around the world. The International House Association Global Forum will contribute to our broader role as conveners, sources of analysis of current events, curators of cultural content, as educators, and as institutions that are committed to furthering understanding across the broad set of communities that we serve around the world. For our 2025-2026 Global Forum Series, we have selected the theme, Pathways to Peace, Lessons in Reconciliation. Throughout the year, this Global Forum will convene a series of 6 programs that will include leading thinkers, scholars, and practitioners to discuss one of humanity's most profound challenges and greatest hopes, the ability to reconcile after conflict. We are so pleased that today's conversation with President Alar Karis of the Republic of Estonia, speaking on innovation and digital transformation, geopolitical challenges, and national security on NATO's eastern border, represents the first program in this Global Forum series. On behalf of the Global International House community and the International House Association, I want to welcome you again and thank you for joining us. I invite all of you to join us here at International House of Chicago for many of our other public events. And now I'd like to introduce Madhav Rajan, Dean of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, the George Pratt Schultz Professor of Accounting, and the Chief Global Strategist here at the University of Chicago, to formally begin today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the University of Chicago, I want to thank all of you for being here. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to what promises to be a very insightful and enriching conversation. At UChicago, we deeply value the intersection of innovation, rigorous academic inquiry, and global engagement. And our community is committed to creating knowledge with impact, whether it's through groundbreaking research, interdisciplinary collaboration, or partnerships that span sectors and borders. This commitment drives our work and shapes the conversations we host, like today's, which bring together diverse perspectives to address complex challenges and imagine new possibilities. We're deeply honored to host His Excellency Alar Karis, President of the Republic of Estonia. President Karis brings a unique perspective to the global stage as a scientist, an academic leader, and now a head of state, guiding one of the most digitally advanced nations in the world. Estonia has become a global model for innovation in governance, digital transformation, and cyber resilience. And as we gather here at a university known for rigorous inquiry and bold thinking, we're particularly eager to learn from Estonia's experience navigating the complex intersection of technology, democracy, and national security. So today's conversation is going to touch on topics that resonate deeply, not only with policymakers and scholars, but with all of us who care about the future of societies. The topics like innovation in the digital age, the evolving geopolitical landscape, and the defense of democratic values. So this is especially timely, and we're really grateful to President Karis for sharing his insights with our community. So I'm going to introduce now Professor John Mark Hansen, who will be leading the discussion with President Karis. Mark is, of course, a renowned political scientist, dedicated leader at the University of Chicago, and a deeply engaged public intellectual. Mark is the Charles Hutchinson Distinguished Service Professor in the Department of Political Science at the college. And over the course of his career, he has worn many hats in service to the university, including Associate Provost, Chair of the Political Science Department, Dean of the Division of Social Sciences, and Senior Advisor to President Bob Zimmer. His work spans elections, public opinion, and congressional politics, and more recently, he has turned his analytical lens towards the social, economical, political, and cultural history of Chicago. He's authored several major works, including Mobilization, Participation, and Democracy in America, and The City in a Garden, a historical guide to Hyde Park and Kenwood, which is a great contribution to our understanding of this local community many of us call home. Mark's contributions have earned him numerous accolades, including election to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So with that, please join me in welcoming Professor John Mark Hansen to lead today's conversation. Thank you.
Good morning. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce the sixth President of the Republic of Estonia, President Alar Karis. Before he became a distinguished civil servant and leader in Estonia, he was a distinguished scientist in Estonia. He spent several decades as a molecular geneticist and developmental biologist, a professor at the University of Tartu, and for 5 years the rector of that great university. In 2021, he was elected by the Parliament to a term as President of the Republic of Estonia. I hope now that you will join me in welcoming, giving a warm welcome to President Alar Karis, the President of the Republic of Estonia.
Dear Dean, dear professors, dear faculty members, dear students, good morning. It is a great honor and a deeply personal pleasure to speak at a university that has profoundly shaped the rebuilding of modern Estonia. Before the Second World War, Estonia was an independent democratic republic. When we were absorbed by the Soviet Union, when we regained our freedom in the early 90s, we faced the enormous task to rebuild our country from scratch. We had to learn how to govern ourselves, how to rebuild the functioning economy, and how to reconnect with the free world. The intellectual foundation that guided us came to a surprising extent from here, from the University of Chicago. The ideas born in this university, rooted in classical liberalism, the belief in individual freedom, private property, and open markets, became a compass from our transformation. Therefore, I believe that the spirit of Estonia's digital innovation and startups is deeply rooted in the ideas, economic liberalism, and reforms that originated here. In the 1980s, among university students in Estonia, there was a song set to the tune of Yankee Doodle, but the lyrics were different. It praised NATO and the Western world, and mentioned figures like Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was for some Estonians almost a superstar. One future Estonian prime minister even named his son after him in the 1980s. What united Reagan and Thatcher was not only political leadership, but the economic thinking behind the reforms, a thinking closely connected to this very university. A significant number of young people who studied in Chicago in the 1970s and 1980s became advisors to various top politicians around the world in the 1980s. Among others, we became part of a circle of advisors to Thatcher and Reagan. The influence of the University of Chicago on economic development was not evident solely through the young people who studied here, but also through its researchers and professors. Thatcher was famously known to bring Friedrich Hayek's The Constitution of Liberty to Conservative Party meetings and say, "This is what we believe." That same book inspired part of Estonia's later pension system design. And although Milton Friedman is the name most often mentioned in connection with Estonian reforms, Hayek's influence was just as important. His defense of individual liberty and spontaneous order resonated deeply in a society emerging from totalitarian control. Reforms inspired by Chicago economists and implemented by Thatcher and Reagan made the US and the UK stronger. This also shifted the balance of the Cold War, helping to bring about the collapse of the Soviet Union. That in turn opened the door for us to regain our freedom. In Estonia, the transformation that followed was rapid and radical. In the early 1992, the average monthly salary in Estonia was roughly equivalent to the current average hourly wage. Prices were lower in the 1990s, but living standards were extremely modest. Our economy was distorted, built on industries and value chains created for Soviet needs, not global competition. Large part of our individual capacity stood idle. In 1993 survey found that about half of production facilities in active companies were unused. The solution came through privatization, which unleashed entrepreneurship. By 1995, Estonia's export had nearly doubled compared to 1993. The turnaround was visible and real, a shift from stagnation to growth. Dear friends, following Chicago's pro-market logic, Estonia liberalized extensively. We introduced a simple and transparent tax system, still ranked the tax foundation as the most competitive in the world. Not because of a low tax rate, but because of clarity and simplicity. For years, Estonians have been able to file their taxes online or on a mobile phone in just a few clicks. A small example of how market logic and digital innovation can reinforce each other. This commitment to openness extended beyond taxes. Our labor market too remains flexible. Wage negotiations happen mostly one-on-one rather than through trade union bargaining. This flexibility has been key to our economy adaptability, a principle deeply aligned with Hayek's idea that a functioning economy requires decentralized information and freedom of choice. One of the earliest tests for our new economic system came in the late 1990s. The Asian financial crisis and Russia's economic collapse hit our region hard. But instead of sinking, Estonia's economy reoriented itself rapidly towards Western markets. Within just a few years, export to Russia shrank sharply, but were replaced by export to the European Union. The flexibility of our labor market and openness of trade policy allowed that shift to happen. Today, our export to the United States are 3 times larger than to Russia. And our import to the US are 4 times larger than from our eastern neighbor. This was not inevitable. It was made possible by institutions and incentives inspired by market principles, the kind of ideas that were championed in Chicago. Another important factor behind Estonia's success over the past 2 decades has been its conservative macroeconomic policy, guided by the principles of the Chicago School. We have sought to maintain small budget deficit, which has helped to keep the national debt relatively low. Now, as European nations increase their defense spending, this past fiscal discipline has proven to be a great advantage. Before joining the Eurozone, Estonia also maintained stable currency under a currency board system, which ensured monetary stability and credibility. These policies provided a foundation for long-term trust and resilience in the Estonian economy. Today, according to the Heritage Foundation's Index of Economic Freedom, Estonia ranks 8th in the world. In Freedom House Overall Freedom Index, we are 12th. In both, we rank ahead of the countries that once served as a role model for us. That is not a sign of competition, but a testament to how freely we have been able to apply and adopt liberal principles, without the institutional and political constraints that more established democracies sometimes face. But freedom is never finished. It is not a static achievement. It requires continuous care, debate, and defense, especially in times of global uncertainty, populism, and renewed authoritarian pressure. Dear Academy, the market reforms of the 1990s laid the foundation for what came next, Estonia's digital revolution. At the turn of millennium, we invested heavily in digital identity, our electronic registers, and public information systems. At first, these were simply digital versions of paper processes, but soon digitalization began to change the very nature of public services. Some of these services could never exist in paper form. Estonia is a digital society where almost everything can be done online. This includes secure digital signatures, real-time business registers, and online voting. Apart from getting married, everything you can do online. For marriage, you have to show up. Many of Estonian e-services are acceptable worldwide through the e-registry program, residency program, which provides access to Estonia's digital services and the opportunity to establish and run a company remotely without the need to travel to Estonia. Government partnered with private companies to build these systems, so the knowledge and expertise are now in the private sector. Those same things now export digital governance solutions around the world, from Europe to Africa and Asia. Digitalization has done more than make bureaucracy efficient. It has also reduced corruption, increased transparency, and supported democratic development. It is now doing it all across the globe. Estonia is small, but that makes us fast, adaptable, and unafraid of experiment. It is still difficult for us to bring about major change in the world. However, exporting digital technology helps us make the world a better place by improving job opportunities in Africa, simplifying tax collections there, making infrastructure smarter, and reducing corruption. It strengthens the development of democracy, which is especially important in the emerging economies. Information technology and telecommunications now account for about 10% of Estonia's value added, with many more companies in electronics and other fields linked to the digital economy. High entrepreneurial freedom and a well-developed digital sector played a major role in the startup boom of the past decade. Estonia has been the birthplace of many startups, some of which have grown into fairly large companies today. This is a valuable experience that should be used to drive future growth. Estonia is a great place to test digital services. We have a pool of people with experience in building fast-growing companies and a strong community of digital businesses filled with like-minded individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, the next great challenge and opportunity is to adapt to a world where artificial intelligence plays a much larger role. We should not be paralyzed by fears that AI will take away jobs. Instead, we must learn to use it to increase productivity, to enhance human work, and to deepen the meaning of what we do. Much like our tiger leap into digitalization 2 decades ago, Estonia has now set its sights on bringing AI into schools. Children already using AI, our responsibility is to make sure that they can use it wisely and to their long-term benefit. We aim to nurture a generation that can use AI for empowerment, not dependence. To achieve this, we have partnered with leading US AI companies and trained teachers over the past summer. The program is now reaching schools across the country, helping teachers integrate AI tools into everyday learning and showing students how to use them critically and responsibly. AI, like every technological revolution before it, will shape or reshape the economy. The question is not whether it replaces humans, but whether humans can learn to work better with it. Estonia intends to lead by example in that transformation. To conclude, when Estonia was still behind the Iron Curtain, students dreamed of joining the free world. They dreamed of living in a country where ideas mattered more than slogans, where individuals could build their own future. When we finally got there and got the chance, we borrowed ideas from those who had thought most deeply about freedom, people like Hayek and Friedman, and from institutions like the University of Chicago. And while Estonia has changed immensely, the core challenge remains the same everywhere: how to preserve freedom in a complex, uncertain world. Freedom is what guided Estonia's transformation, and that is what continues to guide us today, as we move from the age of digitalization to the age of artificial intelligence. Freedom brought us here. Innovation will take us further. Thank you very much for your attention.
So I should say before we get started that there will be some people passing around cards for those of you who would like to ask a question during the question and answer period, and they'll be relayed up here and I'll be able to ask them to President Karis. Thank you very much, Mr. President. It was really, really interesting to hear about this and particularly about the connections to the University of Chicago. I was aware of the liberalization in Estonia and certainly the influence that was attributed to Milton Friedman. But of course, as you know, Hayek was also a faculty member here for some period of time. And maybe that's where I will start with my questions for you to lead off the discussion. The context that you described about the breakup of the Soviet Union and the beginning again of an independent Estonia and the freedom of Estonia, that was taken in a particular world order, of course. A world order that you described as one that was very much shaped by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and embraced by your predecessors in Estonia. That world order seems to be changing, shall we say, that we're not seeing the same kind of leadership for free and open economies out of the Trump administration as we've seen in previous administrations in the United States. So there are sort of great pressures, I would say, on free trade as a regime and as a principle in international affairs. And I'm interested in your kind of observations about the implications of that for your strategy going forward. Is sort of how does one begin to think about kind of leading an open economy and leading an export-led development strategy in a environment where there are more restrictions now on all of that?
Thank you very much for this question, and I'm very pleased to be here. And it's my second time in Chicago. First time was 30 years ago, and I didn't unfortunately visit the University of Chicago, but Northwestern University. I was actually doing research or cooperating with these researchers in that university. So why I'm telling this? Because really, the world has changed. From 90s till now. And for a small country, it's the only way to keep going with open economy. We can't have a ways because we don't have much of resources apart from people, which you have only 1.3 million. So we have to be very careful to keep them in our country. So this is the way we have to work. And of course, geopolitical situation, wars and conflicts in different parts of the world, including war in Ukraine and Russia's aggression in Ukraine, has really triggered some of the economic situations as well. So, as I mentioned, we are not much dependent on Russia, but definitely we are dependent on our neighbors, on the Nordic neighbors, and also European Union economy, how this economy goes and does. So we have to keep our eyes open, and we need collaboration. This is the only way we could survive, and we know how to collaborate already, and we have something to offer as well. So we are a startup country. That means we have a lot of startups. Apart from we are almost 100% digitalized, and also unicorns. We have 9 or 10 unicorns. That means we are number one in the world per capita. We like always per capita because we are a small country and we are very on top of his ranking lists. But it tells something. So, and we are very open to any kind of collaborations, and we are collaborating with number of companies in US and rest of the part of the world. This is the path we should follow. But of course, this geopolitical situation doesn't favor, and that means we have to make changes in our economy as well, to put 5% of our budget on defense. Now it's a bit less than 5%, but next year it's going to be 5.4% already, which is a burden. It's not easy. We have to make cuts as well, to raise taxes, and as a result, not everybody's happy. But we try to keep it open and invite investors to our countries, and investors still coming, although we are quite close to our big neighbor. So we are trying to invite always to come over and invest to Estonia and build up economies in our country. And not in our country, other countries as well, which in our region.
No, thank you. I was particularly struck by your observation about how you're now partnering with US companies to train teachers to instruct students in the use of artificial intelligence. I'm not an education specialist here myself, but I don't know of any such initiatives going on here in the United States. I'm wondering both kind of more particularly what those partnerships look like, and the kinds of things that they might model for us here in the United States and elsewhere in the world, as we also try to figure out how we're going to relate to this new world of artificial intelligence.
I'm not sure that you're not doing here anything about this education. I was in New York, and I met with educators and also the mayor outgoing mayor of New York, and we discussed this issue, and they are doing quite a lot. It's probably the same in Chicago. I mean, because you can't avoid it. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, students are using it already, and we should also educate teachers as well. See, that's why we decided to start in Estonia, to start this so-called AI leap from teachers. That means to educate teachers how to use AI wisely, and to work together with US companies like OpenAI and Google and some others, is to modify these platforms which are already there for our school needs. So this is what this collaboration is all about. And we're open to other companies, not only these companies I mentioned. So we are introducing this to the schools, and of course one challenge we have in Estonia, which you probably won't have here, is a language. That means we should learn AI to speak Estonian, because otherwise these platforms, basically the students, they switch to English. But for a small country, culture and language is extremely important. That means there are challenges, because if you want to learn Estonian language, you have to have an access to Estonian literature. But of course, it is intellectual property rights and so forth. It's not enough if you learn only very old documents or very old books. So this is a challenge, and the same with the textbooks. But we are working on it and trying to make sure that our teachers and students, as I said, use this AI wisely. And probably we are very open to share our experience on this AI as well, because with this digitalization, we have been, as I mentioned in my speech, I have been going around the world, not to copy what we did, but to show our experience, especially for small countries in developing economies, that we encourage them, that you can do as well. I mean, and as we started from scratch in 1990. So this is what we do. We are very open also to share our experiences. And the best way to do it, although everything is online, come to Estonia and have a look yourself. And I am not an education expert either, although I have been a professor at the universities. But you know, professors are professors. They teach how they are able to teach. Sometimes they are very good researchers, but they're very lousy teachers. But luckily, my daughter is a teacher, so I can ask feedback from her.
Lucky you. One of the other things I was interested in the history that you gave us about the restructuring of Estonia in the early independence period is the relationship between the development of a free market economy and an open economy in Estonia, and simultaneously a democratic political system. I actually don't think of Hayek as being a Democrat. Hayek was awfully skeptical of democracy, and the road to serfdom in many ways is kind of an attack on the British Labour Party and its policies after World War II. And neither do I think of Friedman as being necessarily an outstanding Democrat, although he had his moments, but there were other moments where it was clear that economic freedom took priority over political freedom. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about how Estonia negotiated that tension, really, between a democratic society and an individualistic free market society.
I mean, you can't learn everything from one person. So we learned the economy from these two, but not democracy. So we had other books and friends as well. So how to learn. And first of all, I guess when we regained our independence, we were sort of exceptional compared to maybe other states or other countries which were under the Soviet Union, because they never had their own country before the Second World War. Mm-hmm. That means we knew from my parents, from my grandparents, how this kind of country works when it's free, or almost free. I mean, before the Second World War, Estonia was not very democratic either. I mean, but still, we had our lessons from the past, and when we tried to learn how to use this knowledge which we had from past with a knowledge which we had our neighboring countries had. And of course, small detail, but we had Finnish television. So that when people could, it was a window to Europe. We could watch Finnish television and to understand and to see how free world works.
Good, thank you. Let's see. Maybe one other question for you about kind of the economic situation in Estonia. And that's the effects that climate change is having on your country. You're a country that has more coastline than land borders by a lot. So I'm curious the degree to which you're having to reprioritize to deal with the impacts of climate change. In particular, I would, certainly, getting one's emissions under control and those sorts of things is important, but maybe less important in a very small country like Estonia than a very large country like the United States or China. But there must be some very significant mitigation challenges, and I'm wondering how that's affecting your priorities in Estonia.
I mean, to start with, Estonia has been very dependent on oil shale as energy is concerned. So that means most of energy came from oil shale, which is not very environmentally friendly of producing electricity. We switched, and we switched also where we are not going to use or not using gas from Russia and so forth. So instead we are using gas from United States. I guess 65% of our LNG comes from United States. That's not our case, but it's also the case of other Baltic states. And we try to diversify our energy resources and biomass, also wind, also solar energy. Although, I mean, during the winter it's only two hours light in Estonia, but nevertheless, we have solar panels and we're using them very efficiently. Of course, it's not going very well every time because not in my backyard is also in Estonia. People don't want to see these mills, windmills and so forth next to the doors. And also nuclear power, which are discussing to build this modular small nuclear plant also in Estonia. So that's why we are fighting against this climate change. But of course we have to adapt these changes which are going now around the world. We don't see it that much compared to, let's say, small islands in Pacific and so forth. But nevertheless, we are trying to maybe lead by example. This is what small countries can do. I don't think much influence. We have all green energy in our country, but just leading by example. It's the same with the 5% in defense. Not every country in Europe puts 5%. Some even less than 2%. So I just leading by example. So this is what we are doing to tackle these issues. And sometimes people also misuse this climate change. Sometimes it's just the weather, not climate change. We have to educate also our people what is weather and what is really climate change.
So I suspect that lots of people in the room are here today because they know about your geographic position right on the edge of Russia, about your history, having been part of the Soviet Union, incorporated forcibly after the Second World War, or after... Yeah,
before, actually.
Before the Second World War. Oh, right.
Yeah.
During the Second World War. Very interested in the impact that the Russia-Ukraine war has had on Estonia. It seems that you've absorbed a very large number of Ukrainian refugees, and of course you have the Russians on your border, where there's at least, I would imagine, considerable tension across that border, and a concern about the kinds of threats that Russia might pose to your own security. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about kind of what the immediate impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war have had in terms of the kinds of measures that you've had to take to deal with the fallout from that war, and also the kinds of concerns that Estonia has just based on what's been happening in Ukraine.
I always start answering this question that we are not the only ones who are next to Russia. The whole Europe is next to Russia. The whole Western world is next to Russia. That means it does influence us all, this war in Ukraine, or any war in the world these days. So, of course, we are quite close to Ukraine, where war is, and our neighbor is Russia. Has been quite a long time there. So we can't, we can't go away. Russia stays our neighbor. But we do know what to expect from Russia. And this war in Ukraine, which escalated in 1922, reminds us our own history. The same pattern, basically, as I mentioned in 1940. So, and even peace agreements, which here President Trump is really trying to achieve, they won't work. We had our peace agreement with Russia in 1920, all signed, and then 4-5 years later, Kremlin started to our uprisal in our country. They failed, but in 1940 they managed to occupy us. Same pattern. So that's why the security guarantees are extremely important. As I said, we had a very good army before the Second World War. It's a small one, efficient, but we didn't have friends because everybody was busy in Europe with our own problems. That's why when we regained our independence, we started also to become a member of NATO and European Union, because I knew this is the only security guarantee to be a member of NATO. It took us 10 years, and again, we used our window of opportunity to become a member of NATO. And you see, this war in Ukraine also, Finland, Sweden, they also became part of NATO. I visited both countries when I became a president, and they asked the same question about the security, how are you? And always people ask this question, it seems like they're more afraid than us. That's why they are asking these questions. And I also told to my friends and presidents and king of Sweden that you should join NATO. They said, no way. Our public doesn't accept it. So we have been neutral for, I don't know, 400 years or so. 5 months later, they applied for NATO membership. So that means this geopolitics affects not only us, Estonians or Latvians or Finns, but others. And we see this hybrid war which is going on now. So there are drones everywhere, and cyber attacks, which we first time got in 2007, and we from Russian side, and then realized it's all something we should deal. That means this cybersecurity is an issue, and it's an issue now as well. And we are very well protected. So that means we managed to defend ourselves as far as this cybersecurity is concerned. But yes, we do have a lot of Ukrainians. Again, it's probably because in 1944, when quite a number of Estonians left the country because the Russians came back again, we know what it means to be a refugee. My mother has been also a refugee, so we also fled to Germany, and of course later on he came back. I have relatives in Canada, also in US, so I know what it means if you have to leave your home. So now 3% of our population is Ukrainians. So that means they settled before. there are construction workers and so forth who worked in Estonia, but now women and children, they are in Estonia, and we even established Estonian school, a school in Estonia for Ukrainian people, but they are scattered all over Estonia in different schools. Of course, Estonian language is not the easiest one to learn, but you have small kids, then it's not a problem. So we're trying to shelter them, to educate them, and of course, make sure that at least most of them go back, because Ukraine needs them more than us to rebuild the country and so forth. And we are helping Ukraine, not only militarily, but also helping to build up kindergartens already now, and of course politically. But still coming back, we should all be aware of this imperialism which is developing not only from Russian side but on other countries as well. So yeah, world has changed, unfortunately.
Yes, yes. So I see that there are a number of cards being gathered up, so I'm going to ask you one more question and then we'll turn to questions from the audience. The audience may know, but certainly you know, that one of Estonia's greatest gifts to the world is its music and its musicians. And so I wonder if you might tell the audience about the special occasion of your visit to the United States.
Yes, sorry to say, it's not my only visit here to University of Chicago, but we have a very well-known composer, Arvo Pärt. He's most played live composer in the world at this very moment, and we celebrate his 90th birthday. So there were 2 Arvo Pärt concerts in New York, in Carnegie Hall, and this Carnegie Hall was full. Which doesn't happen very often, to be honest, especially when contemporary composers are concerned. So it was very successful here in the US, this event, and he's our ambassador. So I am very fond of soft diplomacy. Mm-hmm. So when I go, I always bring cultural people along. Today I have 2 presidents of university here. Mm-hmm. So because they open the doors and they make sure that a lot of people understand what's going on in this part of the world we come from, and to visit us, and especially, I mean, culture, art and music and so forth. Per capita, again, I think we have many very good composers and conductors, and it's not only Arvo Pärt, which is 90 years old, but there are young singers and conductors and musicians emerging, and so watch out. Yeah. Oh, so many questions.
Yes. I don't think we'll get through them all. Yeah. So here's one. We have heard about e-citizenship. Could you tell us what it is?
E-residence, yes.
Can anyone become an e-citizen?
Yeah, you can. It's rather easy. You fill a form online, and it takes maybe less than 20 minutes, and you can establish a company also in Estonia. The idea is that you can benefit from Estonian tax system, and you establish your company in Estonia. You can work here in Chicago, but your company is Estonia, and you can start your business. So it's very convenient if you don't want to travel, but you have some ideas, and you're looking for a very good business environment. So I don't know the exact number at this very moment, how many e-residents we have, but there are thousands and thousands already all over the world. We stopped giving e-residence to Russians for time being.
So I have a couple of questions here about the Russian-speaking minority population in Estonia. And actually, I had a colleague in political science a number of years ago named David Layton, who wrote an entire book on the Russian-speaking population in Estonia. So let me read both questions. And the first is, what are the current policies and discussions in the government regarding the Russian-speaking population in Estonia? Second, given the significance of the Russian-speaking minority in Estonia and the ongoing tensions with Russia, do you view any aspects of this demographic as posing challenges to Estonia's sovereignty or national security?
Yes, we do have a Russian-speaking minority, and this is also which we inherited from the Soviet Union, when we did have no say who comes to our country and so forth. And there are more than 20% of these Russian speakers. And it's very diverse. It's not only Russians, but it's very diverse population. And with different passports. We have Russian minority with Estonian passport, but also with a Russian passport. Some people want to give away passport now, but we are not able to, because we don't want to travel to Russia. But you only able to give away your passport when you have to go to Russia. So, and there is also so-called grey passport, which is without a citizenship, but it's a passport you can travel all over the world and European Union. And even in families, you mentioned this war in Ukraine. Sometimes even families are split. That means the parents are pro-Putin, and the kids are not, and the children are not. So even sometimes they don't speak to each other anymore. So this war has very, very different influences to our citizens. But what we are doing to do now, we are mostly in Tallinn and also in northeastern part of Estonia, next to Russian border. And when Narva, which is a city next to Russia, before the Second World War, you used to have less than 10% Russians. Now it's vice versa. So there are less than 10% Estonians. And what I'm trying to say, because now there is a policy that you should, living in Estonia, you should learn the language, because official language in Estonia is Estonian. So if you want to do politics, or you want to, I mean, anything, you should learn the language. Otherwise, you got into trouble. But it's not easy, because if you don't hear Estonian language, then it's very difficult to learn. But we started again a program that means all schools in Estonia, instruction is in Estonian. So it's an ongoing process now, and we hope that will, at least this generation who is at school at the moment is able to speak Estonian, and they have understanding of Estonian culture and so forth. So this is what government does now. So, and always, of course, you have to go more often to these places, to talk to these people, to understand what's in their mind, and try really to integrate into Estonian society. So it's a long-going process. It's not easy, to be honest. But as I said, new generation is emerging, and they are more willing to learn the language and want to stay in Estonia. So, of course, Russia sometimes tries to influence these people, especially before any kind of elections and so forth. But luckily we don't have a Russian party in Estonia. That means they are Russians we are in different political parties. And we're trying to keep it like that. So.
Very good. So a question here about your relationships with the other Baltic states, with Lithuania and Latvia. You may know that Chicago has the largest Polish population of any city in the world after Warsaw, and likewise, we probably have the largest Lithuanian population outside of Lithuania. The question here is, how have you navigated instances of collective action with your counterparts in the other Baltic states with respect to the security and to the economy?
Well, these days we are trying to see it more like Nordic Baltic. I mean, we are all small states. I mean, Baltic states, Nordic states, but in combination, I think our economies, we're trying to make kind of a business hub in this region around Baltic Sea, and collaboration is always it's not easy. I mean, every country has its specific interests and political interests and so forth. So we even have problems to build a new railroad from Tallinn to Warsaw. So because every country has its own interest, but we need connections, and trying to overcome these differences in ideas, how should and when should we build it. Well, it's ongoing again. So it's like working together with, collaborating with universities. I mean, you probably know. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's extremely difficult, and you have to offer. I mean, otherwise it's difficult. Otherwise it's difficult to collaborate. And I always use this sentence: if you are not able to compete, collaborate.
Mm-hmm. So here's an interesting question, kind of about Estonian relationship to the other states that had once been part of the Soviet Union. Although Estonia was independent before 1940, plenty of other countries in Eastern Europe and the former USSR have had a strong sense of nationhood, which would include Ukraine and so forth. Why has Estonia been so different with its strong democracy and open economy? Why have these other countries become predominantly authoritarian?
As I said, it's probably one reason is that they did have this sense of being an independent before the Second World War. It applies also to Ukraine. And well, we probably I almost answered this question, but they have different history. I mean, but we're trying to support Moldova and Georgia and all these other cities. There is also a question that how either we are now more international than during the Soviet time. But during the Soviet time, we had students all over the Soviet Union, different nations and so forth. So, but we're trying to help, and now you see, Moldova is coping with the situation, and because they want to become more westernized and more part of European Union, so we're trying to assist them as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But every country has different background, different history, different leadership, mm-hmm. and so forth. We were lucky in the 90s that we had very good leaders to start with. We built the trust to our leaders, to the government. It's also enables to start with digitalization, and otherwise difficult. You see what's happening now in UK with, let's say, digital ID and the difficulties to implement this and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You need trust.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question about technology. Being so focused on technology, how do you balance technology and freedom without using technology as an oppressor, but rather something to increase freedom? I assume that the question is motivated by the use that the Chinese in particular have made to use technology as a surveillance mechanism, and in that way use technology to advance more authoritarian purposes. So how do you guard against that? How do you maintain freedom when you have at hand these very powerful tools that could be turned to a different purpose?
We are putting a lot of effort on our also security issues, how to make these new technologies secure to use. And I mentioned this cyber attack already 2007. So we built our defense system. But we know that there is surveillance around, and they want to take something over. But China is a different story in a sense, and this happened in front of us. I mean, they started to copy first, and then they sent the students to different universities, and then these smart students went back to China, and then they had a network, and they built now very good modern technology-based economy in China. And they have the same problem we have. They don't have enough people. At least this is what Chinese people say, that we need more Chinese people to develop further. So I don't know the answer to this question, to be honest. So being an academic, I'm not afraid to say I don't know. So politicians, they sometimes have problems. They start fiddling around and trying to get an answer. But I don't know the answer to this question, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Another question about cybersecurity. Estonia has been a global test case for cyber aggression since 2007. Is there an important, what is the single most important lesson you've learned from that? We could start there. In terms of how one defends oneself against such attacks. But the question goes on to ask, what's the most important lesson that you feel like NATO or other countries have yet to implement?
Yes, it's mentioned several times already, this 2007, and I think the answer to this is we learned a lesson that this is an important issue, not only on cyber attacks, but being digitalized. It's important to make sure that you're not attacked, because we're attacked on a daily basis. I mean, 24/7. I have seen these big screens in our institutions, where the attacks come from different parts of the world. So, and you don't know who's behind that. But we are we are able to defend ourselves. Sometimes, yes, some some pages on a computer are down, but otherwise we are able to defend ourselves. But that's the lesson. That means you make sure that we are able to defend, and it starts basically from your password, not to leave it on a table and so forth. So there are many simple things you should do before you start thinking big. And the second part was, sorry?
More about kind of what are there frustrations that you experience in sort of thinking about the experience that Estonia has had with cyber aggression?
You mentioned NATO as well, yeah?
Yeah.
We do have a NATO cyber security center in Estonia. So different experts come to our country to learn, to teach, to make sure that we are able to defend ourselves. So frustrations, I don't know whether there was any. And the most important is probably that we didn't expect this kind of world, and we became a bit lazy. I mean, not thinking about defense and so forth. And now, especially Europe, are very busy to build up again these defense capabilities in Europe. And so this is probably kind of experience again that we all like peace, but still we need to prepare or be prepared, especially in this world. And it's not unfortunately only Russia. There are some other countries and some other ideas around to take over some country and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So this is a kind of in the weeds kind of question, I suppose, a kind of detailed kind of question. But we have a student here who's clearly knows a lot about what's going on in your region, who asked, do you believe the current enhanced forward presence model is a sufficient deterrent, or does it need to evolve into a larger, more permanent presence to ensure NATO defense in the region? I know this is something that's certainly of considerable interest in Poland.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very specific question, but what we have now, we have rotations of different alliances, different countries with jets and fighter jets and so forth. So it's going to be changed now, and UK has been allocated to Estonia. That means we have a brigade from UK presence in Estonia. But the rotation is going on, and US forces has been there, and also other countries. Because we need, as I said, we need friends and alliances. So this is a change now that we have, because NATO has to protect, everybody. If somebody attacks Finland, we are going to defend Finland. Mm-hmm. And we have an experience before the Second World. Estonians went to defend Finland. So this is NATO all about. That means you have to make sure that we defend each other. So this is a change probably of this forward thing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I have a couple questions here that are a little more personal, that kind of focus on your background and your current position. Let me read them both. How do you think your background, experience, and education as a molecular geneticist influences your current insight into your role as president and global political leader? And the second question asks, could you talk about how you decided to leave academia for a career in politics, and how your academic background affects the way you govern?
I can give a positive answer and negative answer. Depends how you look at things. Having this academic background creates also difficulties. You don't have time to really go deep into a topic. That means you have to trust your advisors all the time, what they tell you. And most of the time they're absolutely right. So, but still, you have this insight that you want to. Even you trust them, you still want to know more, but you don't have time. And it's very frustrating, to be honest. And I didn't. 3 weeks before I was elected the president, I have no idea I'm going to be a president. And my first answer was actually yes, I'm not going. But there was a weekend, and on Monday I said, okay, I'll try. And I got my votes and I became a president. So, because I was a researcher, but then it goes like it goes. I invited to compare to become a president of a university, director of university, and then once again to other university, and then other positions. And I mean, you lose your experience very, very fast, especially in this field like molecular genetics. So when I was a rector, I still tried to teach students, but well, it didn't work out. So I stopped being a scientist. I just mentioned that I used to read journals like Science and Nature. Now I read New Scientist, which is just a popular kind of thing to understand what's going on in this world. So it's a kind of testing, but I don't regret. I mean, I don't look much back, so I look forward. And I'm now almost 70, so shouldn't worry anymore.
I wonder if you could say a little bit about, do you think it was do you think it was an advantage to have a scientific background, given your country's focus on technology and digitization? And
well, I guess yes, because in Estonia, unlike in US, the president doesn't have that much power, and the only power the president has is statements, his speeches, and so forth. So I'm trying to tell to people that education is important, research is important, that research-based industry is important, and trying to visit different companies. And this is probably helps, and to tell that you should put, even during difficult times, you should put more money on innovation rather than in other places. So this is what I do. So this is part of my job.
Has there been any thought of advancing into biotechnology and the life sciences?
You mean myself?
Well,
or country?
The country.
Well, we are quite good in biotechnology. I mean, we established after Iceland also our biobank, because it's different from Iceland, because our nation is very diverse. I mean, our history, we have been ruled by so many different rulers, starting from Germans, Danes, Swedes, and so forth, and Russians, of course. So this biobank is extremely useful. So we are trying to, not only us, but other countries as well, to take advantage of this biobank, because we are more Europeans than Europeans are, so genetically.
So maybe I'll finish with one question here, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase it or change it around just a little bit. And that has to do with your kind of paradigm of government and academic and industry collaboration. That's something that many countries do, of course, to try to build those relationships. It looks different in different places, more led by the government in Asia in particular, less in the United States. But one of the things that's perhaps a little unusual is the degree to which it involves working across borders with American companies in AI, for instance. Could you tell us a bit about kind of what you found to be the challenges of those kinds of collaborations when they do have to extend beyond borders, and what kinds of strategies you found effective in overcoming those challenges?
I don't think there are many challenges. Of course, first of all, what you have to do, start in collaboration to explain, but we are in a very safe place, and our environment is very good. So this is basically most important challenge, but there is no other way. I mean, how can a small country or small institution can do anything by itself? So we have a tradition, long, to collaborate with different countries and different institutions. But as I said, sometimes it's not easy. But and here also we have quite a number of companies who already here in US. And some companies who start collaboration. There is, of course, one thing which we learn from US is how you actually work together. I mean, university or academia and industry. We are not very good at that. So this is one one lesson we want to learn from here. I just gave an example before that we had a couple of postdocs in 80s who actually studied or worked here in US, and they came back. And they got a completely different mindset. I mean, this entrepreneurial, which we don't or didn't have. So it's one reason you have to collaborate to meet other people, other cultures, and so forth, and bring it back to our country. This is kind of a only way to survive in this world.
So maybe to follow that up, it seems like there is probably a special relationship with Finland. Certainly similar language groups or from the same language group, very similar histories between the two countries. I'm wondering if you could speak particularly about the relationship with Finland and how that's evolved historically and kind of where it is today.
Yes, I mean, because Finland is very close. And I mean, from Tallinn, which is our capital, to Helsinki, which is Finnish, it's only 80 kilometers. So from Tallinn to my city where I used to live is more, 200 kilometers. So it's very close. And as I said, language is very close. Maybe even mindset is close. We are quite slow. That means we keep calm. So we don't get very emotional very fast. So sometimes it's a burden or a challenge, but sometimes it helps not to react on everything what happens around. But we have during the Soviet time, when we had contacts, and I mentioned this Finnish television, which we had a window to Europe, but also collaboration between universities and cultural exchange and so forth. So when we regained our independence, we just continued to do what we did, also before the Second World War.
I also think about the Finnish tech industry, which is
which is a very good example. I mean, they are doing some things extremely good. I mean, so we have to learn from each other. That's our motto.
Well, thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you for being here. It's been an honor. And I hope you'll join me in thanking President Alar Karis.